I told that, like, starting Ecclesiastes, especially with this group, that just means that we just kind of dipped our little toe into it, and now, so I said, well, we'll just start back over at the top of 8. After his wife died from cancer, it's about it's basically a journal, is really what it is. And it's all about him writing down his thoughts and writing down what his conversation, and it's like all of this stuff, and you go through it and you're like, okay, Solomon, we get it, right? We got it. We understand. We're worthless human beings. But I love Ecclesiastes. I love it so much because there's so much in it. There's so much meat in there. There's so many that you guys talked about last week. Does anybody remember what you guys mentioned about these 2 verses? Yes, Miss Christie.
Talked about different people that even had come to the church recently and so forth that accepted the Lord and how it changed their countenance totally.
Talking about, and you know how doctors' offices are, that the walls are thin. You could hear through everything through there, so it's not a big deal. So then we go into the next room, and the doctor that we were meeting with was like, so I heard you guys were, like, she wasn't even in the room. Like, she wasn't even in the room. And she's like, so I heard y'all talking about church. Is there value in the wisdom? And then as you get to verse 8, or chapter 8, verse 1, he's like, so who is like the wise man? And who knows the interpretation? So he is now starting to, he's basically expressing his appreciation of that wisdom, right? Do we?
Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Verse 2.
What did I say? Romans 13, 1 and 2.
Okay. And then, therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will.
Proverbs 8:15.
By me kings reign, and rulers decree justice.
Okay. So, by who? By God. Kings reign, right? Okay, excellent. Acts 4:19.
But Peter and John answered and
that there's sovereignty in the kingship. But then we go to the New Testament, and we've got Acts, both examples in Acts 4 and Acts 5, where it's Peter and John. Peter, I'm pretty sure, right? Right? Peter and John. We just taught this. I haven't been in a public school in so many years, so I don't know how many years. A long time. Right? But there are some of you in this room who were in public schools when the decision to take prayer out of school, when the decision to take Bibles out of classes, to take the 10 Commandments down. We're liberals nowadays, okay? I hate to say that, Chad. Chad's like, we are the outliers, okay, of what this is. Unfortunately, I don't mean in the political sense of liberals, but we are those liberal-minded people that are like, we're different.
Then that no longer was happening. And so, but I used to, at the top of my page, whatever page I was turning in, I would write, Jesus saves, up at the top. Boy, did I ever get in trouble with the teacher, because she said, what does that have to do with anything to do with this class? You're turning blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it was interesting. They were interesting times.
I can imagine.
We just went for it, and it was fun. We had people talking about it all through my high school years that would talk about us.
Well, I know that Fellowship of Christian Athletes, right? There's also Youth for Christ still. And I know Micah and Pastor Sean and Pastor Jacob go once a week to religious standings that are just like, it's just silly. Just say God bless you, or just say Merry Christmas. Like everybody celebrates Christmas, right? Like even the atheists celebrate Christmas. So you could say, Merry Christmas, because they don't care. It's just corporate stronghold and bureaucratic red tape. Yes, sir.
Also, too, I was when it was crazy the muddle through. I kind of it was hard because I had to actually I had to pray about it really hard because like I had to basically just live my faith out.
Mhm.
If people asked, then like
Right.
then I would be prepared to give the answer.
Right.
But,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I worked in a prison,
Okay.
and the inmates asked me one day, said, could we pray for you?
You can't even. I mean, you look at prayers at political, especially under certain administrations. They're very surface. There's no real like. Who are they praying to?
Appreciated that because, hey, fine, I can't use that wonderful name that is above all names.
Right.
It's 5 letters.
Starts with a J, ends with an EUS, ESUS. Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's go. Let's move on to verse 5. We're making it through, guys. We're a third of the way through here. This is great. Okay. Whoever keeps.
observing what's going on, you're actually like, it kind of like reveals their inner thoughts of what's going on. Like where they're like struggling through this, they're experiencing this adversity now in their community and the actual pain for not just with his life, but like day in and day out in their community, their decision to not do this. And so, and he just believed like what he had through legal means and through just basically saying this is wrong. And so because of that, I was put in a position where everything was being threatened as far as our livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
I presented a 35-page document with a lawyer on everything that they were violating, policies, the laws, the regulations, code of law, all that stuff. And then I presented an oral argument before a high-ranking government official of like, this is the my position to be like a train conductor during the Holocaust. Well, he was just driving a train. He was not killing anyone. He was not doing the actual torturing stuff, but he was taking people to their death.
Right.
And so it was the equivalent to what they were asking me to do to be a train conductor during the Holocaust. Was one, having literally throw the fear of man onto a fire and burn it, and then have more of a fear for God than for people, to the extent of going beyond and even like laying that all down.
Right.
And so I think of able to walk from that situation with a pure heart and pure mind and a unstained conscience that I can continue to walk in and give to my children when it's time for them to stand for what is true and what is good and right.
Yep.
So
That's awesome.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Lead and do the things that God called him to do. So this is an interesting part to bring back what you're saying. Especially when Solomon is talking about this. Now Solomon is a wise man, and he's not just looking at I'm sure he's not just looking at the Jewish kingdom, the Israeli kingdom here, and saying just this. He's looking at, you would have had another king that had the sovereignty and the understanding of God's rulership in place, and then it would continue through that the ruler is looking to God for the ultimate authority. And then this verse, who says, whoever keeps and observes of royal commands will experience neither trouble nor, let's say. So we get into that sticky wicket of, where am I? Yes, John. I think that historically, boy, I'm going to ruffle some feathers if I say that. I won't say that.
Oh, now we're doing it.
Good. All right. 6 through 9. Any questions or comments before we move forward? Okay. 6 through 9. All right. Okay. So to continue with the proper time and appropriate procedure. For there is a proper time and procedure for every delight. And this goes back to, there's a time for sowing, a time for reaping, a time, for all of this, right? I'm using Amplified. But
The classic version.
knows the hour, no man knows the time or the judgment of when things are going to happen, right? We can pray, we can ask God to give us some insight to things, and especially, we don't know what's going to happen the moment we walk out the store. We don't know if somebody's going to come hand us a check for $1 million. That'd be awesome. Or if we're going to just pass 11 and 12, or 11, 12, and then 19. 11 and 12 and 19. Prosper over you. You might have resigned, but that was due to your own choice, right? It wasn't them saying you're fired, right? Or you're fired. If I could do my horrible Trump impersonation, you're fired. So, anyway, any comments on that?
I resigned under Biden.
Oh, king who cultivates the field is as an advantage to the land. So, basically saying a king, a ruler who is cultivating his people, who is doing right? When you're cultivating the land, you're tilling it, you're fertilizing it, you're watering it, you're doing all the right things for your land. When a ruler is doing all of these things, it not only benefits the people, it also benefits the king, right? The people don't prosper, right? They're in mortal jeopardy. They're in dire straits all their lives. And people are running from those countries, trying to find freedom in their neighboring countries, or coming to America, political asylum. There's all of, we won't let somebody in from other countries because they're not either neighboring or because they don't hold benefit to us to let those people in, right? So it's a very loose interpretation of things. Okay, verse 10.
You're doing good.
I've got Zach's approval, that's all I need, right? They're still chasing me. Yeah, no, not at all. No, but I'm just making a point of that speeding technically is evil, is doing evil, in a sense, right? We could say that because it's a law of the land. It has been ruled that is not lawful, whether it be 1 mile and over, or 10 or 20, or so. Yeah. So even though I was going to be punished, I actually wasn't. I did have some punishment, but not as much as I should have. So I was thinking, as I was reading this through, what are some other areas that evil prevails if not punished quickly? Anybody have any?
Seeing is like a level of disdain for what's going on, and we have to, as believers, check our hearts, and make sure we're not rising as anarchists, but rising as the sons of God. We're saying, stand in righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
If everything went to pot, and everything,
Yeah.
and so being in that place is difficult to be in, but it's also the most peaceful place to be in.
So
Because then
freeing.
it's like, it's not in my hands, it's in yours, and not in mine. And so we have to caution. And we see this happening more and more. People that are have a disdain for what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We have to show the example of what it means to stand.
A couple of other things that I was thinking that I wrote down on the prosperity for evil. I look at things like porch pirates, right? They're not caught. That other people, a porch pirate, basically you have a box from Amazon sitting in on your front step, and then it's gone, right? Yes, Ms. Tina.
I was thinking of statute of limitations.
Right.
Where the offender keeps doing it because, time runs out.
It's okay. And that badness is no longer considered bad. We say, we turn evil for good and good for evil.
Which is prophesied.
Which is prophesied.
In times.
Yes. Okay, I have some more scriptures to look up. Who wants to? Miss Tina? Can you look up Psalm, 37:11?
They have abundance.
They will have abundance. Miss Jackie?
Say to the righteous that it shall be well with them, for they shall eat the fruit of their doings. Woe to the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hands shall be given him.
Right. So, the righteous will eat the fruit of their labor, right? Their righteousness. And the wicked will have their own wickedness. They'll be turned over to it. Matthew 25:34.
Take it over by it. I mean, not that we can just stand by and do nothing.
Right.
In our tower to straighten things out.
And it's so hard. Like we said earlier, it's freeing to let God have that. But man, I am just as guilty as the next person to say, I don't want to be free of that, right? I want to hold on to that. Like that is like I'm very like that much. Like I want to see justice, God. Like I don't, and I'll do it. Oh yeah.
Happening where it's literally being taken advantage of, and actually it's almost turning compassion into a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, oh, you're taking compassion to someone who has like a big heart, and it's being turned into wickedness.
It's being perverted.
Abused, and then take advantage of others, kind of thing.
Right.
So that's why it's a big caution for all of us to not get sucked into that, because it's being used, it's being weaponized. Openly
Realizing his omnipresence and his power. So this goes along with the scriptures that we just talked about. And we see it, and I know that I can, and I'm sure we all have seen it. We have that wicked coworker who reaps the benefits of his wickedness, right? That gets the bonuses for being sly and underhanded and taking advantage of people. And you go, God, would you just please just smite him already? I mean, that's just human nature, but you do feel bad. Then you have to have compassion and mercy on the person you didn't want to have compassion and mercy on. Yes, Mr. Bishop.
One thing we have to agree on with regard to having Chris Case, as a teacher, you are real. I'm not sure what you use.
It's always good to eat and drink and be merry and be evil and not understand the consequences to your actions, right? Ignorance is bliss, they say. No. We are glad that we're not ignorant in the ways of Christ. We are glad that we are not ignorant in the things of this world that will turn to dust. That was, instead of the truth, you could say it's my truth. But you didn't. You did the right thing.
That'd be relativism.
Relativism, right, yeah. But I'm glad you didn't, because now we have you here, so. And we are better for it. So, in our wisdom, we search out all of these things, and we think we can find the right thing. We think we can find the thing that is. But as Solomon tells us, and as he's getting to the point, right? We've only got a couple more chapters.
Children are accountable forever for all that he has revealed to us, so that we may obey all the terms of these instructions.
So that wisdom that we use, that we've been imparted with through all of that, lets us be accountable to God. Miss Kimberly. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out.
He is. What was that? Could you repeat it for me one more time?
Oh, the depths of the
Revelation, right? It says that the angels circle around him singing holy, 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 and as they see something new on his, something new of him, continually, forever. So there will always be, the truths that we seek are always being revealed. There's always going to be something new. And it's just such a beautiful thing to think that God loves when we search out the truth. God loves that we're seeking the wisdom.
We don't get this time, but we're learning. And we're never going to be exhausted. If you love learning, you're not going to be disappointed for eternity.
Even if you don't love learning. Let's say you just are like, man, I don't like to learn, but the questions that you ask, God can reveal them to you, and you know that you're going to ask another question. You know you're going to search out. Understood the deeper ramifications of the covenant that Abraham had. He had to have understood it with the amount of wisdom that he had. At least this is opinions by Chris. I'm for one to think that, man, this man was the smartest man that ever lived besides Jesus, right? This has got to be the smartest guy ever to understand not the fullness, but to understand the amassment. And thank you for today. We thank you for each person here and everybody who's watched online and anybody who's traveling. God, we ask